Whew. Consumers in 2025 are sick and tired of paying for items and price points that are not making sense when it doesn't match the quality. And today I'm going to talk about a really important topic that's very heavy on my heart. And I'm going to dive into why the luxury industry is struggling. Now, this is not only an industry that I love and I am passionate about, but it's also an industry that I have worked in for 10 years. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Julianna. I'm a stylist. I'm also a designer and content creator. And on my channel, I talk about all these kinds of things. But today, I think I've never done a video like this one where I'm really giving you all of the tea on my thoughts from a stylist, designer, content creator perspective, and really telling you what is happening from my viewpoints, what I've seen with clients, what I've seen happening with the product itself. Why is the designer industry struggling? Let's get into it. I was debating on filming this video for a very long time, for months actually. And as a stylist, I feel like a personal responsibility, even owning a YouTube channel, talking about this because I've had so many experiences where I've seen and observed and analyzed customer behavior for so long. But also, I feel a responsibility to clarify some things about the luxury industry as a whole. So if you're expecting for me to degrade or to shame this industry, I refuse, because this is one that I really enjoy working in and have worked in for so long. I do think, just like any industry, there's pros and cons to working in the luxury industry. But with that said, if you're expecting for me to shame or criticize, I'm not. I'm really having an open conversation with you all about what I think about designer purchases and what I think is kind of happening in society today, why people are acting the way they're acting, and also why brands are acting the way they're acting too. So, after doing serious research, but also collecting my thoughts, it comes down to 5 reasons why consumers are attracted to buying designer goods to begin with. The first reason is because there's something in our subconscious as humans that when we're paying more for a handbag or a luxury car versus one that costs less, we are expecting and setting an expectation in our mind that we are paying for the best of the best and the top of the line quality or service. So, a really great example that I can give you is what happened with Chanel bags back in the 2000s. So, before 2000s, Chanel was actually using real 24 karat gold hardware on all of their bags. What happened? Why don't they do that now? After 2000s, they started using gold plated hardware on all of their bags to reduce cost and for them to be able to have a bigger profit margin. Now, what I find interesting is that when they did the switch, the price no longer really changed. If anything, it increased drastically through the years, like anything. But post 2020, if you look at their medium flat bag, this was a bag that used to cost $5,800. And now in 2025, you can expect a Chanel medium flat bag to cost $10,800. Now, I can only speak for the industry that I work in, which is luxury, ready to wear designer handbags, designer shoes. I cannot speak for luxury cars, for example. Like a Mercedes might very well have the best GPS, a much better GPS or sound system than one of a different car brand, a more common or contemporary car brand. I can't speak on specifics, but for what I know, I can honestly tell you that these contemporary brands have given Chanel, Gucci, YSL a run for their money, because they are now saying, we're going to give you a handbag that's $200 and it's just as well thought out, and the marketing is excellent and it's strong and it's making you feel a part of our lifestyle brand. So once that really increases, that's, I think, one of the reasons why clients tend to just it's an old-fashioned way of thinking, but clients really did think that they were buying the best of the best quality, when nowadays we know that that's obviously a debunked myth. But that is one reason why, to begin with, they were attracted to buying something of that price point. Another reason that people are attracted to buying luxury goods is scarcity. So if you are familiar with the law of supply and demand, you know that the more scarce an item is, or the more rarely seen an item is, even I would go to say the less an item is produced, that makes it more desirable for someone in general, especially the elite or the super wealthy clients that I work with. They love like a rare bag design or something that just came out, or that's why a lot of them go to Hermes and buy Birkins and Kellys, because these bags are super exclusive. They're not easy to attain, they're scarce, and so they are very attracted to that. And I think this even ties in with my next point, which is social status. I think that people love to buy designer goods in general for social status purposes, whether it's because they've already lived the lifestyle and they're part of this like world of being comfortable with money and being in a financial situation that's very comfortable, or because they're aspiring to be in it. And so I think a lot of the times I run into a whole bunch of different people. My clients obviously live the life, but a lot of other clients of mine are simply like they're aspiring for that. And so because buying a good gives them a sense of that feeling, that is another intention why we will buy it. Number 4 is aesthetic appeal. I think a big motivator for wanting to buy designer pieces is just how beautiful an item is and how well made it is, how the design was really well thought out. I think that's one of the biggest reasons that I personally am very gravitated towards some designer handbags and shoes. Not always, but some of the time you can tell the difference between a real leather bag and one that's made out of faux leather, or one that's using a very specific, like beautiful type of beading versus a cheap beading. There are times where I promise you, you can see up close the quality and the aesthetics tie in together. So I think that if you're someone who obviously can afford and you have all the money in the world, you're obviously going to want the most beautiful things that money can buy. And so I think that this is, again, a big incentive for why people are so gravitated to just beautiful aesthetics and beautiful items and things. For me, that reason makes sense because I went to design school. So it's actually very hard for me to get out of, like, get my head out of that gutter that I'm in, because I've learned what looks like real silk versus fake versus this versus that. So it's like, for me, it's actually very hard to go shopping because I have naturally very expensive taste now. Thank you, FIT, for going to fashion school and learning about, you know, the more expensive fibers or the more finer fibers, even in clothing. So yeah, I feel like I have a lot of versatility in my closet regardless. I have everything from a very like humble designer bag collection to a couple of designer shoes. I don't have that many designer shoes, but I have clothes from everywhere. So I really try to keep my style and my channel affordable, relatable, but also aspirational. And lastly, number 5, as humans, we know that we all get a nice little hit of dopamine. And so I think that personal pleasure is another reason why we are so attracted to buying designer things. It's a very different feeling when you buy yourself an ice cream versus a pair of designer shoes. It gives you like a sense of, again, dopamine, happiness, temporary satisfaction, and a little bit of pride that you bought yourself something really nice. And there's also a sense of being really proud of yourself for being able to swipe that card with ease. And I think that that's definitely a motivator for why people buy these things. It's purely out of like pleasure and wanting to treat yourself in a different kind of way. Okay, so now that we have a better foundation and understanding about our intentions to wanting to buy designer items and what attracts us to it, I think it's also important to now get into specifics as to why the industry is failing as a whole. What are these brands doing to turn off the consumer from wanting to spend more than they used to? So if you look at a lot of global wealth reports, anywhere from 2020 to now, you'll notice that there hasn't necessarily been a decline in the wealth that exists in the US or internationally. I mean, people are still wealthy and doing very well. There are still millionaires and billionaires out there. But it really comes down to why have their priorities changed and why their spending habits have completely like decreased drastically. What are these brands doing that is turning them off to that? I also don't want to be delusional and not acknowledge that the world hasn't changed as a whole, because I do think that the cost of living in general has been highly increased, as well as groceries, as well as just honestly anything and everything has increased post COVID due to inflation, unfortunately. So I do want to acknowledge that that is definitely something and a factor that is affecting it. But when we're talking like true wealth, where people are still financially comfortable, I think that there's another factor that comes into play. And I think that that is the fact that it's been such a big viral conversation on the internet. Quiet luxury. Quiet luxury is why they don't want to spend as much as they used to. A lot of brands have become way too loud, way too flamboyant out of desperation to wanting to sell. So I think that with clients noticing that, especially clients that I consider true wealth, they want something that's subtle elegance, and they're not interested in the straightforwardness of the brand and how out there it is. They are wanting to actually blend in now, if that makes sense. They are not interested in standing out. Another reason is definitely more logistical, and in China, for example, the luxury industry has been down. Stocks in luxury brands have been down for the same reason, and that is that just China opened way too many stores and they couldn't keep up with the amount of costs to keep these stores open, and they didn't have the sufficient traffic to keep it alive. And so I think that then decreased fashion brand stocks, did not help the market at all. And I think that when this happens, it's actually frustrating for the brand, because they have like an obligation to be there in a city center or in a shopping mall where all their competitors are. But if you can't keep up with it, it does affect things drastically. So anyway, to wrap up my thoughts, I think that the world is going through economic uncertainty. I think that brands, some of them, not all, but some of them are taking advantage with price increases to continue to give this illusion of brand exclusivity to consumers, and consumers are somewhat refusing to fall for it. There's also very clear shift in consumer behavior. I think people really value quality still, but they're just more open-minded now to what that entails and where they go for it. And the last point is obviously increased competition. So with the rise and the saturation of so many different brands and so many different competitors trying to give you the best price for the best quality product, I think that a lot of these designer brands are struggling to keep up with that too. So I'm sure you're probably wondering, Juliana, but if you work in this industry, like, don't you feel like you just exposed them? Honestly, no. I feel like we live in a time where all the information that I've already said is already out there. And to be really frank with you all, here are my personal opinions of owning designer goods. I feel like if you can realistically afford them and not struggle to pay your credit card off, I think you should buy them and enjoy them. I think you should. Do I think that you should also be mindful as to where the future is headed? Sure. But it's all about balance. It's about not having, partaking in overconsumption and consumerism. It's okay to buy something out of necessity because maybe your bag freaking fell apart and you need a new one, okay? But being really realistic with yourself on what you can afford is the most important thing. And this is something that I'm actually like trying to work on, because I feel like this industry has warped my mindset a little bit on this, on what I can afford and can't. We are in different times, like I said earlier, so even my priorities are changing, okay? So I want to be really honest about that. But do I think that you should stop buying designer? No, I think that if you can afford it and you're watching this video, you shouldn't stop. Like, why are you going to stop enjoying yourself if you love beautifully designed things? Then go for it. Now, if you're someone who, I've seen a lot of videos, and I do want to touch on this subject too as like one of the last ones that I do in this video because it is kind of annoying. If you are someone who has never owned a designer handbag and want to get on YouTube on a video because you've never been bought one as a gift or you've never had the privilege of owning one, and you want to go ahead and argue that it's not cool, that it's stupid, then I think that the jealousy is fuming out of you. And I don't think that it's great to judge others for being able to have the ability to own one either. And I think that it's very clear that these women are just trying to justify not owning one. But if you honestly tell yourself, you know what, no, like I truly don't own one because I, can't, like, that's not part of what I can financially afford right now in my lifestyle, then I think that's honest. And there's something very like profound to be said about that and very realistic. So anyway, from a stylist perspective, something that I'll share very candid with you guys is that I have a very small, nothing crazy designer handbag collection and designer shoe collection. And that is purely because I've had the privilege of working with so many brands and for so many companies. I've had access to a lot of different things. So I feel very grateful that I've been able to afford these things with my own money. But don't get me wrong, my priorities are also changing. So that is why on my channel, I like to show a little bit of everything because I want to be able to reach an audience level that enjoys great style and quality taste, but also just being able to be relatable to everyone. So honestly, one of my biggest videos shows a pair of J. Crew linen pants. It's titled How to Style a Pair of Linen Pants. And I have other videos where I'm showing like Tom Ford, Etro, beautiful like designer pieces that I love in the newest designer collections for ready to wear that I'm pulling at the store for clients or just like trying on myself so that I know the fit of it to suggest to clients, etc. But I work with a little bit of everything and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I'm really not. I think that it just depends on you individually, and I think people should focus on themselves and what they can afford individually, and life is to be enjoyed, remember that. So along with life and all the things that you can enjoy your money, enjoy the things that you're able to buy with them. Still be responsible, but yeah, that is my message to you guys. I have never really bought anything because I saw it on another person or because I wanted to participate in a type of lifestyle. For me, it's about aesthetics, like I said earlier, because I went to design school and I appreciate something really beautifully well thought out or made. So for example, when the Prada re-edition came out, that was actually one of the first bags that I ever bought full price with my money because I loved the fact that you could wear it as a chain. I thought it was very clever, the way it had the thick strap, the way that you can take off the thick strap, the way it had like a pouch for your AirPods. I thought it was just the most clever design. And then after, a lot of other people copied Prada. So that was just my way of wanting to really support that idea. I thought that the design was clever. I didn't really see it on anyone else. I didn't really care about the resale value, but what I cared about was my cost per wear, and I wore the heck out of that bag. And I'm so proud of myself for that because I knew I was going to wear that a lot. And I did, and I've enjoyed it, and everything has its time. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something or some things about the industry, what's going on. Maybe there are things that you've also kind of understood or observed too. And I really want to open the floor respectfully. Please be kind in the comments to me and to this world that I work in. Comment what your favorite like point or part of the video was, and if you have any things that you want to say or you want to add on, I would love to hear, because I think this is a really significant conversation to be having, especially in these times. So I'm sending you so much love. Hope you have the best summer, and like and subscribe if you want to see more content. Maybe not like this, but more fashion content, more fun content, less deep and heavy. Okay, bye.